friends. Welcome to the final episode of our special mini lecture series, Talk Tuesdays. I'm Laura Gonzalez, the Director of Education and Volunteer Services here at Santa Fe's Premier Living History Museum, El Rancho de las Golondrinas. We are located in the beautiful and historic La Cienega Valley. Today's topic is the never-ending importance of water, presented by Las Golondrinas Irrigation and Water Resources Technician, Cory Murchy, who will explore the history of water and farming here on the ranch in his talk, El Agua es Vida, the Acequia Madre of Las Golondrinas. Thank you to our live audience joining us here today in our Paloheimo Education Center, and to all of you joining us online. We hope that you enjoy the presentation. Cory will take questions at the end of the talk, and any questions posted in the comments will surely be addressed as well. And now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome and introduce Cory Murchy.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, Laura. I'm excited to talk to you about acequias today. When I first started working here last year, one of the things that I realized that we don't talk about as much as I hope that we do in the future is the importance of water here at this ranch, the acequia that is associated with it, and what we do with it, how it's been used for the last 300 years or so, and everything that goes along with that. So judging from you all here today, we all love history, right? And we know that we all need water. It's the most basic element in our body, and without it, we can't do very much at all. So what we have in New Mexico is really special. It winds through our backyards, just off of the rios and the other watersheds and springs, and it's a water management system and irrigation conduit that not only provides us with life-sustaining elements, water for farming and for our basic survival. I truly believe that the acequia brings together the community and allows us to build a stronger one within the community. Everyone needs to put their hands into it in order to make that work. One person can't do it. The community has to come together. So, let's start. The acequia system here in New Mexico has been largely unchanged and has been in continuous use for over 424 years with the arrival of the first Spanish settlers. It's an irrigation canal that moves water, but it is so much more than just a simple ditch. An acequia carries the water that it was built for, but it also provides a conduit for community and traditions that are as interwoven into the land as the cottonwood roots are in the banks of the acequia themselves. As with all great traditions, this story has a rich history. It involves a multitude and multiple cultures spanning thousands of years, multiple continents, and it's a special thing, as I will continue to say. While there are many differences of cultures in how we all live and what we eat and what we do, the one common through line is that we all need water to survive. I'm certainly not a historian, but I am a great lover of it, and I do believe that it helps inform us on where we are now, and I think the acequia is a prime example of that. And so hopefully with this talk, we can explore that, and I know a lot of you probably know a lot more than me, maybe, but hopefully we can all have fun with it. I think we need to pull back a little bit and talk about the history of water in the Southwest and what the cultures did before the Spanish arrival. And the best place to start for that is in present-day Tucson, where some of the largest known irrigation systems in the USA can be found, dating to about 1200 BCE. It's a long time ago. These canals diverted water from the Santa Cruz River and allowed large-scale cultivation of maize and cotton. These man-made canal systems covered over 100 acres, delivering life-giving water to an otherwise inhospitably dry landscape. Later on, the Hohokam people employed massive-scale irrigation farming just outside of Phoenix, in the Phoenix area. And these canals were massive. Some of them measured about 20 miles long, and the canal systems themselves incorporated about 500 miles of canal systems. Some of these were so big and large and so productive that later cultures came in and used some of those same canals, which you can see in this photo is an old Hohokam canal, really big, really big. And we have to remember that we didn't have iron tools, we didn't have backhoes, we had hardened sticks made out of wood and fire to dig out these canals, which is pretty impressive. Around the same time as the Hohokam Society, the Anasazi, located in Chaco Canyon, had a lot of success managing their limited access to water, collecting water that would come from the side canyons and that would drain into the upper mesa top. They would then divert it by either an earthen or a mason dam near the mouth of the side canyon into a canal. And then water was diverted into fields and into small reservoirs. So there was a great tradition of irrigation in the Southwest. Obviously, if people are gonna make it here, they're gonna need to figure out how to move water and do it as easy on themselves as possible, right? So the construction of these canals was a big, big process, but once you had these canals, you can then prosper. When the Spanish arrived during the 16th century, the explorers noted the use of the canal systems among the Pueblo people. And it would make sense later on as I explain why. In 1582, Antonio de Espejo wrote approvingly of the irrigation ditches that he saw that supplied the Pueblos in the middle Rio Grande Valley, which they supplied water to the fields of corn, beans, squash, and cotton, and even mentions how the Pueblos used irrigation with canals and ditches built as if by Spaniards, which was probably a big compliment coming from Espejo since he got kicked out of here later. And while we know a little less about the actual water management institutions of the irrigation of the Pueblo people, we do know that they were built and managed as a community affair. So there was a reason why these water systems seemed familiar to the Spanish, because they themselves came from a rather arid land in the Iberian Peninsula. They had been settled and conquered by the Moors for about 800 years, and the Moors, bringing their technology from northern Africa and Arabia, they knew how to manage water as well because they had to. So when they got to the Iberian Peninsula, they saw that there were a lot of irrigation canals and water systems that the Romans had left, but had been put into disrepair, basically. So the Moors were able to create their acequia systems in the Iberian Peninsula, and in fact, acequia is derived from the Old Arabic term asakia, which is a double entendre for water conduit or water barmaid. They utilized hand-dug canals and gravity, and water was diverted from springs or rivers and fed past their natural riparian zones, transforming previously unfarmable tracts into life-giving zones of production. Many of these acequia systems still exist in Spain to this day, in fact. In particular, in Valencia, you can still visit these extensive waterways that provide water to a whole host of farmlands. So it's still a tradition in Spain that continues, which is pretty impressive because they work. In fact, many years ago when I was traveling in Spain, I couldn't help but recognize that the landscape reminded me so much of New Mexico. And it made sense that as the Spanish are, coming up the central Mexico valleys and mountains and battling through the jungles, they come into this land that all of a sudden reminds them of home. And they knew that if they were going to make it here, the first thing that they were going to have to do is to provide water for a whole plethora of reasons. And so luckily for them, they had the knowledge and the wherewithal of the Acequia system, which made sense to be able to just kind of put it into practice as soon as they arrived, if they were going to settle and make it productive. In 1598, the Spanish established their first settlement, which in what would later become New Mexico. Located in the San Juan near the junction of the Rio Chama and the Rio Grande, one of the very first projects Oñate ordered was the construction of an acequia system. On August 11th, work was begun by the Spaniards, who were assisted in their labor, no doubt by some of the 1,500 Tlaxcalteca natives from central Mexico they brought with them, which also, as an aside, the Mexican cultures had great knowledge of water systems as well. The present-day Mexico City was built on a lake, so they had to build extensive canal systems in order to manage that. So it's a little different than our lack of water. They had too much of water, but they had to figure it out. As the Spanish set up their own irrigation systems, the colonists realized that the community irrigation customs of the pueblos were pretty compatible with the Spanish institutions and were therefore allowed to continue more or less unchanged. In this connection, it is noteworthy that the public acequias, as developed under Spanish rule in New Mexico, showed in some cases distinct traces of the influence of old native customs. So I think what's happening is, cultures are going to talk, and cultures are going to see what other people are doing, and they're going to take ideas, and they're going to share ideas and build upon it. The construction of these systems was hard work and was done by the collective manpower of the community. There was certainly no backhoes or even metal shovels to aid in building the systems. Fire-hardened digging sticks and primitive hoes and shovels made of wood served in the absence of iron tools during the early colonial days. If the community was lucky enough to have an ox or two, they would be used to remove earth by piling the dirt onto rawhide that were then attached to the animals that were pulled behind them and moved the soil out of the way. Timber was felled and hollowed to create canoas in order to span distances, and the ditches themselves often wound around obstacles and meandered through the land in order to utilize the natural grade. Work was slow and methodical. Water was periodically released into ditches to make sure the grade was just right, and it was a real balancing act. Too steep of a grade and the water would rush too fast, which would expedite erosion, while too little of a grade would create pooling and standing water. In order to feed the water into a desired field, sangrias were cut into the ditches laterally to empty into the fields. Diversions at the head gates of the main water source were constructed by utilizing timber, earth, and stone mason work. From the main acequia, or acequia madre, additional ditches were constructed to water further afields as needed, often looping back to return to the main ditches or river it derived from. Soon, what was just once a sliver of green on either side of a riverbed, the acequias transformed the land beyond, turning what was once arid into thriving riparian zones that not only sustained the farm plots meant to grow food, but it also created new environments altogether for further expansion of plant and animal life. Along with the bonus of new life-giving systems, these acequias provided another byproduct, a community. It was often said that the acequia doesn't belong to the people, but rather the people belong to the acequia. Everyone that drew from the water had a responsibility to help maintain the project in order to keep the water flowing. Because of this need for everyone to be involved in a system to settle the disputes and standards of operation, the principles of a democracy in its governments was applied to the whole acequia system. And in fact, it's one of the oldest European forms of democracy that's been in continual use in the Americas, is the acequia system, because ultimately everyone has a vote. Under this tradition, each ditch is governed by a 3-person commission elected by the parcientes, who are members and landowners that the community drew water from. And then the pacientes and commissioners would also elect a ditch manager, the mayordomo. And the mayordomo is the boss. They manage the infrastructure of the irrigation and decide who gets water, when, how long, sets up the La Limpia, the cleaning of the acequia every spring. And it's important to have a mayordomo that will make the rules because everyone listens to it. There's a lot of, when we don't have enough water, there's always going to be some rub somewhere. So it's not I would imagine it's not a fun job to have all the time. You're either really, really well liked because you're getting your water, or you're not liked because you're not getting your water. As the old saying goes, whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting. So because we're seeing less and less water in the environment, there have been some concerns as to the efficiency of the traditional acequia system. These are earthen-built canals, so there's going to be some seepage, and water is going to be lost due to evaporation and it just seeping into the land. But on the flip side of that, these acequias, because they're earth and the water does soak into the ground, again, it creates whole new systems of life, and it creates new avenues for things to grow, which in turn brings more animals and more just prosperous land altogether. The water that seeps into the land provides a healthy, lush green canopy that helps shade and retain moisture, which then promotes more growth. And it just creates a more complex system of biodiversity in the land. As well, the seepage that the water is delivered to the field also helps recharge the aquifers, which will often return to the river systems and the water was drawn from originally. So there is a sort of cycle that goes along with the water and some of this water loss. The acequias remained an important aspect of northern New Mexico's culture, history, and tradition that has quite literally transformed this land. While there still are around 800 or so acequias remaining, they do remain under threat of running dry for many reasons. And as well, they come into disuse because a lot of the younger generations are moving to the big cities. They're not farming the old land that's in their families, which an acequia in disrepair, it goes out, very, very rarely does it come back. Some communities decide to line their ditches with concrete or pipe the system altogether, which creates a loss of the seepage. And so that stops some of the pretty things that we have, the cottonwoods and all the stuff that goes along with it. The great cottonwoods whose roots once formed in the very banks of the ditches begin to die, and formerly lush landscapes return to the clutches of the arid desert that for so long was held at bay. In turn, the people of the acequia, held together by an obligation of mutual benefit, begin to fray, and they can often drift apart, creating fractures and divisions among themselves. But there is an increasing awareness of the benefits these acequias provide. Thanks in large part to the grassroots organization of the communities fighting to hold on to these traditions, the acequia and the community it provides hold on for their future and will keep going as they always have. If we look at the acequias as being part of the fabric of this land, I would suggest that they're the very stitching that keeps it all together. And while the water helped us survive, the acequias allowed us to live. Here at Las Golondrinas, we have a great honor to be a part of an acequia that was built around 1715, and it's listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The water of the Acequia de la Cienega provides us, we use it for a variety of traditional and non-traditional crops, including chili, corn, squash, melon, beans, sorghum, grapes, apples, as well as our newest addition, hops. There's no shortage of things to see here at the ranch, but our acequia is a must visit. So that's what I have. I didn't really get through my slideshow. Truth be told, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little more used to playing rock and roll in front of thousands of people a night instead of talking about an acequia system. But I am excited to go through this slideshow and kind of go through it with you. So this photo is obviously of the lower part of our acequia system, and I just love how as soon as the water goes through, that green starts popping. And it's a real, I think, just indication of what the acequia means. It's so much more than just water for the fields. It creates the system that we love and hold dear in New Mexico. This is actually our acequia system. I don't know how well you can see. It's kind of small, but it just shows the routes that it goes through and explains some of the history. And then this is, more in depth of where we are and some of the translations and definitions of terms, which I can get to everybody. I love this photo up in the upper corner. I don't know if you can see right underneath La Cienega, Acequia. It's probably hard to see, but there's a photo or this drawing of a field worker, and I cracked up because I took that exact same photo. So it kind of helped me think that I was on the right path. So the acequia, it provides the water for our fields, which you can see: sorghum, corn, chili, onions, melons, and these are all the crops that that help sustain life in New Mexico. These are the hops that we are growing, and they're on a drip system, but the water is pumped out of the acequia. These are the apples that we irrigate up in the Sierra homestead. These are a couple big bulls, or not bulls, bucks that I found continuously last year walking around the acequia. Talking with Sean, he said that he hadn't really seen all that many deer around this area, but last year I couldn't turn my head without seeing them, and that was pretty exciting because I firmly believe they wouldn't be there if that water wasn't running. They came down for water. Another photo, just because it looked like a Disney photo. It looked like out of Bambi. But those great cottonwoods, again, without that water, the cottonwoods wouldn't be there. And I think we all enjoy the shade that they provide and the beautiful gold falls that we can witness here in the valleys of New Mexico. Here's a great example of the acequia working with the land and the land working with the acequia. That cottonwood is keeping that bank together. It creates the bank. Pretty cool. And this is, for me, what it's all about, the future. And I was lucky enough to have a buddy of mine come to visit, and he brought his daughter, and seeing her play in the acequia before it was cleaned out. That's a dirty acequia. It made me realize the importance of water and the acequia system, and to be able to pass it on and to share the knowledge with other people and with the youth, because it's a connection to our past. And I think the more connection that we have to our past, the more we can forge through to the future and make decisions in a better way. That's kind of what I've got for you. I know it's a little, yeah. Does anyone have any questions? I'm sure, yeah.
How well is the organization of our acequia working? Are the people getting along? Is stuff happening?
From what I can see, it seems like yes. I can only speak ultimately for our section of it. And I consider it a great responsibility to work on this acequia, so I'm doing everything I can to keep it clean, to keep the water flowing down to our neighbors, and to use it in a responsible way so that there is enough to go around. I went up to the cleaning in the spring like a month ago, and that was great. The whole community came out. There were a lot of hands, which seemed like, to me, it's working. So I can only speak, for the ranch, but I think just the fact that we still have it, because there are so many acequias that have gone dry and have gone, by the wayside. So something's working. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that a water right that's embedded like in the deed, or can it be separated from access to that acequia?
This one in particular?
Yeah, just the system as opposed to like an irrigation district where there's water rights that you could get for your property. Like if you own the property and it's on an acequia, that right is in that deed to that water, right?
I believe
How's that kind of work?
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure. I am still very much learning and a student myself. So I believe, and if someone can correct me on this, the water goes with the land, and I don't believe, especially with this one, because it's on the Historic National Registry, that you can parcel out that water right. I may be wrong on that.
Yeah, I'm Carl Dickens.
Good to see you.
You're correct, that what has protected those water rights now, and this has just happened the last few years, because we can't sell water rights. They are valuable, people want them, developers want them, because they use them for development. But a few years ago, one of the conditions that's added to all of the bylaws of the acequia associations is a requirement that any of those transfers go through the commission. And so that's what has been kind of the roadblock, that has to be approved by them. And as you well know, they're not real trying to transfer water rights out of their areas, so they are protected in a sense.
Right. So, which that makes sense too, and that's why the importance of the whole community and the commission and the Parcientes and the Mayordomo, because there's strength in numbers. So in other situations where it's not an acequia, if it's you're just in other situations, you can sell your water rights and your neighbor doesn't have to agree with it. But because this is a community water entity and it's treated as such, then yeah, you're right. Yeah, that makes sense, is that everybody has to vote on it. So it would be hard, I would imagine, to get the whole community to sell off those water rights to McDonald's or whatever it is. So, yeah.
If there's no water in the ditch, there's really no right to.
Yeah. And that's, it's something that everyone's dealing with. Everyone is. It's definitely with the waters that we get come out of an ojo. I mean, it comes from a spring, and those springs are slowly, the aquifer is slowly drying, and the water level is going down because of all the wells that have been built for residential homes or big things. So it's definitely on everybody's radar. Yeah. Yeah.
Cory, mine's kind of a two-part question. One, the LA 20,000 property, that spring dried up. It's not there anymore. And it hasn't been that long ago since it stopped working or providing water. The second thing is, how much is El Dorado and its 4 wells affecting our water supply?
I'm not sure. That's a great question. I could look into it. But I mean, everything's kind of connected. And just the fact that there's more people, more water is being used. So, yeah. Yeah, Carl.
Cory, can I add some things to your
Please.
Cory does a great job, and for someone who is relatively new to the area, I'm absolutely impressed with his knowledge and understanding, and really appreciation and love for acequias, which is, I remember those ranches, and I used to water out the big ditches there. So anyway, getting back to what we're talking about, there's the Acequia La Cienega, which is one of the 3 active acequias in La Cienega, has seen about 50 to 60% reduction in their water resources in the last 40 to 45 years. Well, that coincides when they started to allow all of the lot splits to go up around the racetrack. And so that's absolutely an issue with this. But I also want to point out, and I want to thank Dan Goodman, in that the LXO's Golondrinas has funded a study of the water levels, the aquifer water levels in this area for the last, it's got to be close to 10 years now. It's going on that long. But that gives us some scientific information. The study is being conducted by the Bureau of Geology and Mineral Resources. And so they're doing it, and I haven't seen the data lately, but at one point it seemed like it was holding steady. It had dropped considerably, but it held steady. And there was some opinion I heard that it may be septic recharge. But we don't know. Now, when you talk about the 4 wells in El Dorado, that was the result of a study conducted by Peggy Johnson and Stacy Timmons in 2015. And they asked if there are 4 wells in the Acequia Formation that are wells. And the former president of the La Agua Association, we have already contacted the El Dorado, El Dorado Area Water and Sanitation District to ask them to take those wells offline. Now, what allows that to happen is the Canyoncito water line, which is a water line the county is putting in, supposed to be completed by the end of this year, and I doubt that, but probably next year sometime, that it's going to go through El Dorado, go up to Canyoncito, and now it's also going to go to Cañada de las Aguas, because they need water as well. When that happens, because the well levels have dropped so much in El Dorado is going to pick up some of that water from the county. And so we raise your hand and say, okay, when that happens, take those 4 wells off first so we can help with our water that brings through our water. But there are things that are being done. We're going to use, Cory and I are going to spend some time together about some of the things that the community's going to do that we can get done. And I've got a number of different water positions these days, and so I'm involved in some efforts to try and restore the springs of La Cienega. And I actually think there's a plan that we can put together to make that happen, at least get them back to some semblance of what they were before. The old timers will tell you that we see the La Cienega Creek, which is really what goes through here. In the old days, that was as much water in it as the San Diego River. That was because all the springs were going in this area. So anyway, that's a little insight into it.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Sorry, I do appreciate that. We were there yesterday exploring El Dorado area. That's when I encountered the 4 wells. I mentioned earlier how that was affecting our area.
Yeah.
The other thing I kept hearing is that a lot of people are putting in straws, to take our water supply. Quote,
There's no stopping them.
huh?
There's no stopping them.
There's no stopping.
Anybody that buys a piece of land has the right to put in a well. And
Okay.
absolutely. And the issue now, this is where it gets a little political, is that when they put those wells in, they are supposed to meter those wells and provide that information to the county. Well, guess what? That was a resolution or a thing that was enforced or put into enforced starting in the 1990s, and it's never been done. So that's another thing that the La Cienega Valley Association did, is contact the county and ask them to enforce this particular ordinance. Well, it's now going on 4 years and they're still trying to figure it out. What I'm understanding is they're doing like a comprehensive study of all of the wells in the area. And so it's gone beyond La Cienega. It will be kind of like the trial or target area, but it will be expanded to include other parts of Cienega County.
I think by making certain overall, we don't want another LA 20,000 piece of property without water, which is what exists right now.
It's crazy. It's not funny. Well, if you wonder how the city is able to develop all of their apartment complexes, they buy water rights from the Rio Grande Valley. So the Coral area, they grab a whole lot of farms in that area so we can have houses up in this direction. So that's another ongoing issue that we have.
Yeah. I'm in the Whitwell Ridge area. Most of our water comes in from the Rio Grande, but all of that water is recycled back into the property.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be consulting with Carl on the next talk that I do. I did not do myself any favors by not talking to you before, so thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Like I said, I've got a lot to learn, and I just, once again, I feel like the water in La Cienega and at the ranch is such an important story. There's a reason why this has been a ranch for so many hundreds of years. There's a reason why people have been in the area. We have water coming out of the ground. It's pretty remarkable for New Mexico. So I'm just glad to begin the conversation with everybody and to kind of get everybody thinking about the water at the ranch and what it's actually provided and how it's provided. So yeah, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions that me or Carl can answer? Yes, Laura.
I don't have a question, but a request.
Yeah.
A couple of slides back, you mentioned a Disney photo with Cottonwoods and the Bucks, but it didn't show there. It didn't show.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah. You know, the Cottonwoods thing, I always think about one of the Spaniards were looking for gold, right? They were looking for the 7 cities of gold. They were where is all this gold? And I can just imagine them coming into the pueblos. They're like, have you seen any of this shiny yellow stuff? And the pueblos are like, yeah, it's up that way. It's up that way. They weren't wrong. If you've seen a fall in the valley, it's literally gold on the leaves. And I think more importantly, that gold, it's because of the water. And the water is the gold at the end of the day. So, yeah.
What are the chances of you allowing some of us volunteers to help in the cleaning of the ditch?
You can help clean the ditch anytime. No, it's definitely something that we can look into. Many hands make less work. So, yeah, if someone wants to put their back in to help and clean the ditch, would be great. I've got a bad back. It's hard work. So, but it definitely needs to be done, and it needs to continually be done. So, yeah, at some point, let's talk and figure that out. Yeah, Laura.
On that note, I'm just curious about how many feet or yards are we responsible for maintaining here at Las Golondrinas?
Oh boy, it's a pretty good stretch. I don't know. I wonder. I think I don't have the actual amount, but I mean it's a big long stretch from one end of Pinot on up to our property line. Thousands of feet, I would say. It's a lot, but it's beautiful. Yes.
Just a note, I was walking with Frances last week. I think she is a longevity, she's a docent. But she was pointing out all the areas that needed to be worked on as far as digging and cleaning out the ditches. I mean, she had a pretty good feel for that. I want to know if would volunteer with you to help get that done.
Well, I would like to find out what part of the dirty ditch that there is, because I've been cleaning that thing. So, wow. Yeah.
A little firecracker.
There's always work to be done. And I do have to say that some of the unsung heroes of this place are the folks that work in the field and our operations folks. Cesar, Eduardo, Manuel, our new guy, Jerry, Cesar's son, Junior, and they all make this place tick as far as keeping it clean and keeping, things operational. So my hat's off to those guys. And if you do see them, say hi and tell them thank you, because I will watch them, especially Manuel during the season, when it's high season, he's going from one end to the other weeding all day long. And by the time he gets to one end, he's got to go back to the other because they've popped up. And that's backbreaking work. So they do really an amazing job. So, yeah.
Is most irrigation is just like cut the bank, let the water in?
Yeah, we do have, in order to feed this field in particular, there's a concrete head gates. And yeah.
And then what about gophers?
Once that water goes, the water finds it. And then there's no more gophers. So, but yeah, sometimes we will find, that is a way of seepage getting into the fields and getting into places where you don't necessarily want it. But again, it creates, other things living. So, yeah. And that's, it's been talked about as far as what we should do with our acequia, and piping has come up. It's something that I will fight against it, just because because I believe in this system, and I believe that the amount of seepage isn't as great as, as what it is maybe made out to be. I know there's scientific studies on that, but I'm thinking of the bigger picture of the land. It's more than just the fields, I guess. So, yeah. So I'll fight for that acequia to stay clear. And which in turn does create an awful lot more work. So yeah, we'll take help. Anyone else?
I've got one last thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Cory. I don't know how many would want to, but I'd love to have a tour of the Acequias and its history, how the gates come together, the projects that are going on, the hops, how you're watering that. Is that possible?
Yeah, and I know we've talked about it before, and I apologize for not getting back to you sooner. It's been busy. Once water comes, things start going, and things are really starting to move. So yeah, at some point, I would love to set up some sort of acequia walk, because I think some of the hidden gems on this land are within the acequia themselves, and just the flora and fauna that come up, But yeah, at some point, I would love to be able to throw our rubber boots on and take a walk. We'll have to figure that out with the insurance company and everything first, but I don't want to say anything too soon, but yeah, we'll put you in life vests, and yeah. But I just really appreciate everyone coming out. I know that my talk is a little discombobulated, but I just really love this system so much, and I really have a great respect for people that have been working it for hundreds of years, and for me, it's such a special thing to be a part of, as a 40-something-year-old gringo that doesn't have a background in farming or water. It's something that I've really, truly fallen in love with, and I think it's something that everyone can appreciate at the end of the day. So it's provided so much. And not to say that it's always easy and everybody gets along in the acequia system, and sometimes there's oftentimes disagreements, but at the end of the day, we all work together in order to make it happen. So thank you very much for coming out.
Wow, thank you so much again, Cory, for that wonderful presentation. We hope that you all enjoyed it. We hope that you all learned something about the importance of water at Las Golondrinas in New Mexico. Never ceases to amaze me how when you put water on the table as a topic, it really invokes a lively discussion and lots of questions. And I think it's something that we're all very passionate about. And thank you, Cory, for being willing to be a presenter on Talk Tuesdays. He joined our team, and I saw his passion and enthusiasm for water and for farming and what he does here at Las Golondrinas, and I knew that we had to get him up here, and we had to get him talking to you folks and get him recorded, because it's a great topic to talk about. So remember that you can find this video, as well as all the other videos that we've done over the last several years, on our Facebook and on YouTube. If you type in Las Golondrinas channel, this video, as well as all the others, will pop up. But we hope that we'll see you all here this season on site at El Rancho de las Golondrinas, to see for yourselves our acequia system, to see all the lovely crops that are produced as a result of it, to see all the hard work that Cory and our operations crew has put in. If you see Cory when you're out, I'm sure that you can persuade him to give you a little talk and a little show of all the work that they've been doing. We're very excited about this season. We're celebrating our 50th anniversary, so definitely please come and see us for yourselves. Come walk the beautiful grounds, and make sure to follow us on our social media accounts. We are both on Instagram and on Facebook, both at SF Golondrinas. Please subscribe to our newsletter to keep up with everything that we're doing. And we'll be posting all the exciting things happening this year, 2022, for our 50th season. Remember to start your adventure at golondrinas.org. Thank you, friends, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.